How are you? April behind the mask.
I know. I have to keep mine on because I'm not hosting, but this lovely is.
I am. I'm so glad that you guys are live with us on Facebook tonight. It's going to be a really, really good conversation about how to save the American River Parkway. As we both know, as users of the Parkway, it's just really gone downhill. It's sad. We've seen a lot of fires this year, a lot of trash. And so we've got a lot of people joining us here that are going to hopefully offer some solutions.
And we're going to show you those people here, but it is a full house. It looks like we have a lot of people waiting. Kelly is getting ready to take to the mic and lead us through this really important evening of a discussion on how to work together to save the Parkway, because it's more than just nature. It is our way to get together, especially when we've all been not able to do so.
I know. We want to all get out, and then there's some areas that are a little, quite frankly, a little scary right now.
They are. We, just filming them. There's times where I was brought to tears just seeing the devastation and what we're faced with. So,
and those of you who don't know, April and John Christensen behind her are at the Sacramento Media Center.
Sorry, we lost your voice. Yeah.
And they have done an amazing job putting together this video that premieres tonight that really gives us a first-hand look at what is happening on the Parkway. You think you know, as they say, you have no idea.
No clue.
And so they have done an excellent job getting great interviews. The editing is fabulous. It is really, really good. We're going to post that, obviously, after tonight.
And then Kelly, she was the voice of the video. You will hear her in there, and she did an amazing job, of course. But I've got to let her go because she's going to have to go take up to the stadium over there.
Okay.
Stadium. It feels like a stadium.
It does feel like. I haven't seen this many people gather in a while.
That's what's behind us right now. Is it's been a while since we've had this many people, so I'm excited. Thank you, Kelly.
You, April.
So once again, I'm April Potter. I've worked with the American River Parkway Foundation as an MC for Howlin' on the Parkway, and John Christensen here is the director and producer and editor of what we will be seeing tonight. I'm going to go ahead and flip this around for you. Give me 1 second. And we are here in Sacramento, and this is the scene. We're at the Sacramento Realtors Association, and people are just getting snacks and kind of funneling in. We have, food vendors and sponsors. Show you some of the little delightful treats. So this is what we're feeding everybody before we make them sit, and so this is where we are. We have news crews in here, and people that have been. This gentleman here in the blue is in the video, so you will be able to hear his voice later on. So thank you, Chris. Got other media, but I just wanted to give you a walkthrough. And Miss Diana Pogetto of the American River Parkway. We're live on Facebook right now. So, and Phil, it's good to see you, Phil Cernas. So thank you for having us all out here. Supervisor.
I'm happy to be here as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, of course. So you can see we have quite a bit of people in here.
Like how you can tell the.
So this is where we are. I'm going to let you all go get situated, get some snacks yourselves, use the restroom, and I will be back live. We're live.
How many people do we have?
Right now we have 33 checked in, and this is Mike Rizzo, and he is
checked in. There's a lot more than 33.
Well, here. No, I'm talking live. We're Facebook Live right now.
Oh, on Facebook 33, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook, yeah. He's asking in the building. I don't know yet. I might have to go to the front and get a count.
We're about ready to start, but there's a few more people wandering in, so we'll give them a couple minutes.
Couple minutes. Thank you. Like I said, there's people still coming in. Kind of want to go get a rough count, but once again, we are out here to watch the premiere of Parkway in Peril. And the Parkway is known for so many wonderful events. They've got, Saturday, September 25th, Ride the Parkway coming in, bikes, bagels, and brew, just so many really great things going. Ooh, I guess I'm not going to let you guys take a break. I hear someone on the mic.
It's game time. All right.
forward.
You
Stuff
need
like
to-
you're getting the string is here.
Really good.
And I hope you can-
But if you would have a seat, it'd be great.
Such a great supporter.
And good evening. And I want to thank all of you for taking time away from your run or your bike ride or your stroll on the American River Parkway this evening. Thank you. My name is Mike Rizzo, and I am the American River Parkway Foundation Board President. And like you, we all love the Parkway, and that's why we're here tonight. Our discussion tonight is a Parkway Foundation's attempt to try and be a catalyst for solution that we all know is a problem on the Parkway. We see it every day. We see it firsthand. We smell it. It's a situation, right? So what we're going to do here tonight is we have a 13-minute video that we produced, thanks to John. And then we'll have followed by a panel discussion, which will be focused again on solutions. And we're all here for the same reason, because we understand the issues out there on the Parkway. So we're going to really encourage your participation around solutions. And I think you'll see when Kelly comes up, the board panel's impressive for that purpose. Moderating our panel is none other than Kellie DeMarco. You may know her as the former anchor of KCRD3, but what you may not know is that she's got not just one or two, but she has 3 Emmy Awards under her belt. That's amazing. Thank you, Kelly. And a little bit more about Kelly. Now that she's no longer an anchor, she leads a successful media relations agency appropriately named Kellie DeMarco Communication. And it's focused on helping businesses and nonprofits such as the American River Parkway Foundation tell their stories and work with media to more effectively tell their stories and to be heard so that they can be a greater influence in their mission. I've personally worked with Kelly on several occasions now, and I can just attest that she's a real professional. So we're lucky to have her, and I'd like to invite her up to the podium.
Thanks, Mike. So good to be here. Look at this turnout. It really, really warms my heart to see everybody here, and I know how important this all is to us. I just first want to thank Mike Rizzo and the board. Let's give them a hand. Thank you so much work behind the scenes, and it's really important, right? We live here, we want to make change, and we need people like you to do this. By the way, you'll be seeing Mike Rizzo on cable commercials pretty soon in his 5-star bankroll. So you're your own celebrity, Mike. Just saying. Okay. Yeah, I did his makeup. I didn't think you were going to tell anybody that, but okay. So for me personally, I think, one of the reasons that I'm here, I first had my experience with the Parkway about 10 years ago when I moved here at KCRA, and my first experience, I know this is no surprise, but it was covering a fire on the American River Parkway. And over again, our chopper was up and we look at just what was going on below us, the dry brush, the firefighters that were out there working tirelessly to make this happen, and seeing some of those fires get dangerously close to 80 to homes. And so that was my first real impression of this area that has kind of come full circle now, and here we are today. But I also was really involved in the Parkway, their summer solstice event. I don't know if any of you were able to go to that white party that they had, a really fun event that raises money. Again, the Parkway Foundation cleaning up and raising a lot of money to help. But as a frequent user of the Parkway as well, which to be honest, not really that much anymore, I've seen, just like you firsthand, how it has declined. And it's quite frankly really sad, isn't it? It's like it's decaying, it's burning before our eyes. And so we're at a tipping point here tonight. And I just want you, first of all, to give yourselves a round of applause, please, for being here tonight, because you are here truly giving a voice to this issue that really needs people like you behind it. It really needs some solutions here. We want to introduce our panel here in just a few minutes, but we hope tonight we'll bring some solutions and get that conversation started. I also want to thank Rob Vendetti of Rossi Catering for our wonderful food tonight. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. And so like mentioned a little bit, I'm going to give a quick overview of the evening, how this is going to go. We are about to show the video here, and I'll get to that in a second. We're also being live streamed on Facebook on the Parkway Foundation's page. So just know that when you do answer your questions, you will be broadcast live to the world. I may be used to that, you may not, so careful what you say, okay? We don't have that like 5-second delay we have over KPK, so just please be sweet, please. So we're gonna watch this video, and I wanna give a shout out to John Christensen. He is in the corner over there, wave hi, John. John and April have been working on this incredible video. There's April there. She's live streaming, so see, there she is. Yes, round of applause. They're at the Sacramento Media Center, and they went out on the Parkway, shot really incredible video that you're about to see, and really put their heart and soul into this video. So we are about to get a first-hand look of what's really going on out there. As they say, you think you know, but you really have no idea. So without further ado, here is the premiere of Parkway in Peril.
It's a passion to keep the river clean. It's a beautiful place, and I'm a mousekeeper because I want to. If I didn't have the official title, I'd still be cleaning up no matter what.
I think everybody has good intentions. I don't think anybody is sitting saying, what can we do to destroy the Parkway?
People have parkways and they're nice, but not like this one. Not like this one.
A great park is more than land, wildlife, and recreation. It is the people who use it to refresh themselves and the communities whose values it represents. This parkway is treasured by all who come to experience this tranquil beauty in the middle of the urban core. This 23-mile, 4,800-acre American River Parkway is owned by the County of Sacramento, and it's supported by the American River Parkway Foundation. But our parkway is in danger, and if left alone, the results could be devastating.
So my name is Keith Wade. I'm a captain and the public information officer for the Sacramento City Fire Department. When we have incidents out on the American River Parkway, they can be challenging.
I'm standing right now on the American River bike trail, and just to
control another grass fire that broke out along the American River Parkway. This happening near Cal Expo, a familiar scene.
We start with another grass fire burning in Sacramento County right now. Take a look. Maybe seeing smoke from this that's burning along the American River.
Yet another Sacramento Fire Department engine making its way inside and responding to yet another fire on the American River Parkway.
I can tell you in my 20 years here, we've definitely seen an uptick in fire activity out on the American River Parkway. These fires threaten homes, they threaten lives, they threaten businesses, they threaten the safety of the first responders and the law enforcement, and then move out into those areas to fight the fire. So when we have fire activity, it's usually human caused. It's usually originating near an encampment, and people are doing activities that are unsafe. Any open flame out here, especially in an afternoon, when humidity is low and you have a little bit of a wind, recipe for disaster. Tragedy can happen fast.
When the fires occur, things don't just go back to normal the next year. It takes a lifetime in some cases to restore things.
Within 2 weeks' time, 9% of the parkway burned. 9%. With 2.5 weeks, this is just last week. 2 weeks ago, 9% of the parkway burned. You're kidding me. In 2 weeks, in June, what could happen by September?
From the date of this recording, 5 more fire incidents have occurred. Total acreage destroyed is now more than 11% of the parkway.
This area's got to be ready and available for people to recreate. That's what it's here for. It's here to be enjoyed, to be experienced safely for everybody. It's everyone's parkway. But when we have these large-scale fires, everyone needs to understand that this isn't a fire department problem out here. This isn't a law enforcement issue. It's not a city problem or a county problem or even just a regional problem. It's an everybody problem. It's all of our responsibility to ensure that this place is maintained, it stays safe, and future generations can enjoy it.
Volunteers and stewards of this magnificent treasure are disheartened by the lack of progress their cleanup efforts make. Their voices echo the concerns of many when it comes to the threats of wildlife, water quality, and safety. The following statements are from Miles stewards who are currently aware of parkway conditions. An admitted lover of the parkway since childhood, a successful real estate agent who's been a Miles steward with her husband for more than 10 years, a dedicated team leader from the CGI Corporation, and a successful businessman who served on the board of directors of the Parkway Foundation and who's a member of the Point West Rotary.
It used to be that primarily when you went out and you policed an area, you found the normal types of litter associated with recreation.
Almost 5 million people use the parkway every year. That's about the same as Yosemite. I think actually a little bit more people use the American River Parkway than go to Yosemite. Can you imagine somebody throwing a bottle in the Merced River at Yosemite? Your normal citizen would jump on that person and go crazy, but for some reason, people don't have a problem when they do it at the American rivers.
Nowadays, you're finding the remnants of encampments. We've got hoarders, tweakers, we've got people bringing things onto the parkway into encampments that are really starting to destroy the aesthetics, I think the sanitation, and the safety of the parkway.
I don't like using the word homeless or the unsheltered because it doesn't really describe the issue that we have at the American River Parkway. We have nomadic citizens who like to camp there, and they are lovers of the rivers like you and I are. You'll never get those people into a shelter. They enjoy living at the river.
You see evidence of it all the way up to Watt Avenue. It's had all kinds of impacts on people, not the least of which is a lot of people just don't want to go down there anymore.
There's already areas you don't feel safe going. You certainly don't feel safe as a woman, and I never run on the trails by myself, and then that's getting worse.
We just run into sites that are just basically, they are landfills. I mean, really.
It is so overwhelming, the amount of garbage. You cannot believe it unless you are seeing it and picking it up. You can't believe it.
What I've seen out there is that the unhoused community there will find a spot and they'll just dump it there. All the debris that are out there potentially end up in our river. I mean, it contaminates our drinking water, our river, our delta, and then the ocean.
It is our drinking water, and it's impacting it.
They tested down there Discovery, it's E. coli. I mean, what's it going to take?
They've been continuing to keep an eye on this. The
Recent
E. coli
tests show high levels of E. coli.
It shows that E. coli levels at some popular spots are above the state's level of what's acceptable.
We as a community have to ensure that the vision of our Parkway forefathers to set aside land for all to enjoy will carry on.
My approach over the past 10 years has changed because I do interact with the campers. And it's more of a message of keeping the place clean. I give out bags. I don't try to pass judgment because I know they're there because they love the river, but you can't trash the place.
We can prevent what's going on, and so far we seem to collectively lack the will to do it, or at least to do it right. And that's got to change, or there's not going to be any parkway to save.
So the issue I'm finding is, I want to say it's a drug issue, but I don't want to be that broad. It's a methamphetamine issue, and that is what I run into. Very few of the campers I come across on the river aren't involved in methamphetamine. And the river provides a safe place for them to go tweak out.
I know it's tough. I know the judicial requirements for encampments or removing encampments are not the easiest to comply with, but society has to accept them, and we've got to do something affirmative. Otherwise, we're just going to default to what's happening now, and it's going to get worse because it's been getting worse. And the bottom line is we won't have a parkway that's worth much at all.
We have to call it what it is. It is not a homeless problem, it's a mental health and drug problem. And I totally agree with that statement. From what I've seen, I'm just one person out there helping, but from what I've seen, and that is where that's where I would start. Help for those people, and hopefully things will start to improve.
It's not a political issue. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with a culture shift. And we have this jewel that citizens aren't using to the full potential. And I see that as the biggest challenge, is getting people out to the river and removing the negative stereotypes associated with it.
We have to start realizing that we are the voice of the parkway. We need to speak out and make sure that on the issue of illegal camping, to the extent it is destroying the parkway, that it not be allowed to continue.
We cannot let it to continue to be destroyed, because it's being destroyed right now. Right now, today.
You can have this place to come to, but there's also a lot of people working hard to keep it clean so people can come to it and not come to a polluted place.
We're so fortunate that that group of people had the foresight to save that property and save that land for all of us. I am so thankful to those people. It was Aldrich and William Pond and some others who did that. It wasn't that long ago, and they had the foresight to do that. And we are going to let it become one giant garbage dump. Because and it's going to be a burned garbage dump. That's what's going to happen.
We need to do better. We absolutely have to, or we won't have a parkway to save.
We've got to do what it takes to make it stop. Or we're going to lose it. It'll be gone. Just mow it all down and build houses, I guess.
There is a pride of ownership that's missing. And what a lot of the areas around the river, and I'm going to talk, River Park, Glenbrook, Rosemont, Rancho Cordova, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, all of those citizens that live next to the river should be at the river on a regular basis and enjoying it. If more people go to the river and enjoy it, that sends a bigger message. And the people that are trashing it become outnumbered at that point.
Please become a voice for the American River Parkway by contacting your elected representatives. The Parkway belongs to all of us, and it's up to everyone to ensure its future. Thanks again, John. Great job. Great video, wasn't it? Pretty eye-opening. Yeah. Whether you agree with everything that was said in the video or not, it's pretty eye-opening. I really want to take a moment to, and I realize this every time I watch it, just, the volunteers and the stewards. If you aren't familiar, these stewards are basically responsible for, mile along mile, each mile. So they really take care of things and try the best they can, and they're just telling their perspective. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of perspectives tonight. Yes. But anyway, thank you to the volunteers. And by the way, I got this information, and I just love data like this. To give you a little perspective, they do a sustainable Saturday for the cleanup. And the last one, mid-July, 56 volunteers were out there. They spent 168 hours. And fortunately, 3 of them brought pickup trucks because just during that time, they picked up 12,000 pounds of trash. 12,000 pounds of trash. And they removed over 100 needles. So with that, we've got a lot to discuss. I know our panelists are kind of excited to be here. So I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one. And basically how this is going to work is we have a couple volunteers that are going to be walking around with microphones. And then if you have questions, raise your hand. We're going to try to get to as many of you as possible tonight. We also have some comments coming in from our Facebook page, so we'll try to include you as well. Thank you for taking time to send those messages. And then also, I know that some of you filled out some questions up front, and so if there are any of those, I'm happy to take a look at those as well. So without further ado, let's introduce our first panelist, Liz Bellis. Liz, come on up. She is the director of the Sacramento County Department of Regional Parks. Liz has more than 25 years of experience working in regional parks, most of which have been with Sac County. She served as the lead manager in the development of a natural resources management plan for the American River Parkway. Thanks, Liz. Our next panelist, John Costa with PG&E. Come on up, John. John has been a government relations representative for PG&E since 2015 and has been on the American River Parkway Foundation board. Get to the next page here, since 2018. And he also serves on the board of directors for the Sacramento Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, John, and welcome. Our next guest is Supervisor of Sacramento County District 3, Rich Desmond. Come on up, Rich. Nice to see you. Rich is a 5th generation Sacramentan, and he was elected to represent District 3 on the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors last November. If you're not familiar, District 3 covers a pretty big area: Arden Arcade, Cordova, Fair Oaks, Carmichael, and the North Highlands area. Previously, Mr. Desmond was with the California Highway Patrol as Commander of Field Operations in Eastern Sac County and oversaw CHP legislative affairs. Welcome. Our next panelist is Nico King. Nico, come on up. He's a Deputy Fire Chief for the City of Sacramento. Welcome. Nico joined the City of Sacramento Fire Department in 1994. He serves as Director for Area 3 North for the California Fire Chiefs Association. I looked it up, did some research, and Area 3 includes Sacramento, San Joaquin, El Dorado, Calaveras, Amador, and Alpine. Thanks, Nico, for all you do. Welcome. Our next panelist is Diana Pagetto. Diana, come on up. Diana is the Executive Director of the American River Parkway Foundation. She served as director since 2008. She's been involved with nonprofit organizations and public policy for more than 34 years, and she knows a lot of facts about what's going on, let me tell you. Thank you for being here. And then last but not least, of course, is Supervisor for Sacramento County District 1, Phil Cerna. In 2018, voters re-elected Phil Cerna to serve a 3rd term as Supervisor of the 1st District. District 1 includes about 112 square miles, extends from the Sacramento-Sutter County line, south to Florin Road, east of Power Inn Road, and from the Sacramento River east to Watt Avenue. The Sacramento native participates on a number of boards and commissions, including Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, and Sacramento Solid Waste Authority. Thank you, Phil, for being here. So this is our board. All right. You ready for some questions? We have a couple of volunteers. Raise your hand. Do we have the microphones out yet?
Hey, Kelly?
Yes.
Before we get started, did anyone notice that my good friend and colleague, Rick Desmond, moved a little closer to the exit? He may have only joined the board recently, but he's very wide. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Okay, so we have a couple mics. Dean O'Brien and Valerie Vento Johnson. Raise your hands. Got Dean here. Where's Valerie? She's in the back there. Okay. So basically, how this is going to work is just raise your hand. We ask that you keep your questions and solutions to 30 seconds, and we really do want to try to focus on, really coming up with positive ways to help. Ask questions, and we know that this is a problem. So let's try not to make this a complaining session for the next couple hours. Let's really try to work together and find some solutions, okay? Can we do that? Please be nice. Okay. All right, so does anybody have a question to start? If not, I've got a couple written here from up front. Yes, sir, you're in the back. Please state your name first and go ahead with your question.
Thanks. My name is Chris Smith, and I have a question for Deputy Chief King. Being someone who's down at the Parkway a lot helping, and we see fires down there often, particularly at Sutter's Landing where we hang out and try and protect. And I was told by some of the...
Just click the bottom there. If it turns green, it's on.
We're back up. Maybe? Hello? Yeah, okay. So my question is, what do we do when we see someone with a fire on, whether it's a campfire or they're cooking? I was told by some of the fire department who responded out there that they were not able to do anything if someone was cooking. And so what do we do?
Thank you for the question. Good evening. I'll tell you what, I got to start off by saying it's good to see so many people in the room. I don't think I've been in a room with the community in the last couple of years, so it feels good, and it's good to see so many people interested. And I see Councilman Jeff Harris is in the back, and I want to recognize him. It's good to see you here, Councilman. To your question, the fires that we see out there, for the most part, and Keith did a fantastic job of explaining it, right? The fires that are legal out there are in the designated areas. There's those barbecues or there's fire rings, and those are the ones that are legal. So if it's anything outside of those designated spots, the solution is to call 911. If there's questions of the behavior and you think it's going to start a fire, the solution is to call 911. We'll be able to get out there and take a look at it. And I think what you ran into is, some of the frustration, because we know how easily these fires spark and cause the devastation that we all see and just saw. But it would be better for us to go out there and take a look at whatever any of you are seeing, so we can evaluate, we can have a conversation with the individuals and make sure that they're going to proceed safely. If it is a legal fire, if they're cooking. Otherwise, we can extinguish it if it's illegal or if it's going to be a hazard. So I hope that answers.
Not really.
Not really?
No.
Okay.
Because
I'm sorry.
Your staff, fire people, I'm talking about things that are not in a legal campfire or in a barbecue area. And the fire department who was sitting there told me they could not do anything because even though it was in an area that no fires were allowed, because they were cooking, they were told they cannot respond to it. So your people told me they could not do anything.
Okay. I could see, and maybe I'll ask back, how long ago this was. If it was
6 months.
okay, and we have been able to change some of those ordinances where if it's not in those designated areas, we absolutely can do something about it. There was an existing city ordinance that fires can be in open spaces for the use of cooking, and that's probably the rule that they were under at the time.
So that's changed?
It has, yes. There's a continuous effort to identify hazards, even within the city. We're looking at critical infrastructure and what can we be considered critical infrastructure and eliminate those cooking fires that are even outside of the parkway. And then the conversation of can we designate the entire parkway as being a hazard, and there's a balance there, because we know that there's those designated spots right now, but it's a conversation that's continuing, and we're obviously going to be paying close attention to that.
Thank you, Nico.
Yep.
We have one right up front here.
Hi, hello?
Might need to switch out the mic if it.
You can probably talk about it.
Hello. My name is Crystal Tobias, and I assist with the mile on the Parkway, and I also have a nonprofit in Folsom that it takes care of the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area. My question is, and it's to Supervisor Cerna, could you please describe for the group the
Boise decision and how that is impacting our parkway, and if there are exemptions to the Boise decision that we could begin to utilize to help address this issue?
Thank you for the question. Before I answer, I just want to take a moment and thank Diana, thank the board of the foundation for this. This is a tremendous turnout. I think it really speaks volumes to this common interest in how much we individually, collectively own the Parkway. And it really means a lot to us as local decision makers to see this much interest, especially in the tail end of a pandemic when you're willing to come here with masks on and join us. I do want to thank, in particular, Mr. Jim Strang. He used to serve on the Board of Supervisors. He's also with us here this evening. And also just acknowledge the person that I work for, my chief of staff, Lisa Nava. She's in the back as well. She's the real boss of District 1, and I'm glad to see that she's here along with some of the staff from Supervisor Desmond's office as well. So for those that aren't familiar with kind of that part of the question that is rooted in case law, there has been a relatively recent decision that's typically referred to as the Boise case, which more or less makes it more challenging, and some might say rightfully so, to move people that are suffering the circumstance of being unsheltered or homeless, that are residing on public property from essentially squatting or camping on public property, and that does include park facilities. And since that decision, I won't say that it's been a sea change. I mean, we saw certainly the impacts of the unfortunate circumstance of folks camping on the parkway when they shouldn't be before the decision, but it has made it a bit more challenging from a legal perspective, and I'm not an attorney, but it has made it more challenging, especially given the urgency when you have fires on the parkway and you need to move people if for no other reason their own safety. And so that is something that we continue to grapple with at both the city and the county. It's not unique to Sacramento County or Sacramento City. This is a court case that has equally affected local jurisdictions, local municipalities and counties across the country. And again, I take kind of an agnostic view of it, but I do have to fairly admit that it does, especially again, those times when we have fires erupting or we have other emergent situations, including flooding, to move folks off the parkway. So for those that simply email me or come and testify on items not on the agenda at any given board meeting, just say, why don't you just move them? That's one of the reasons that makes it a little more difficult. That local jurisdictions cannot just simply move people off of public property that are squatting or that are occupying it or habitating on public property.
But are there some exemptions to that? That was the other half of the question. What are there any?
I think there are some very specific public safety exemptions. I don't know if Nico knows more about that than I do, but there are some, and we've asked our county council to explore some of those. Again, it's not just to shoot people; it's to make sure that, especially if their lives are in danger, that they have a place to go so that we can enjoy the parkway.
If there aren't enough beds available for these folks, then you can't really move them,
That's
right?
true.
Is that one of the issues we're facing?
One of the issues that we're facing is the fact that it has a capacity connection in terms of the ability to shelter folks. And of course, when you're talking about having not hundreds but thousands of folks that are actually on the parkway, separate from, on our streets or under our overpasses, it means that we have a challenge in front of us to make sure that we're housing folks, whether it be in shelter or permanent supportive housing. That's not going to happen overnight. Both the city and county have been engaged in many different initiatives as of late, and expending a great deal of our budgets, quite frankly, to make sure that that connectivity between the ability to add capacity to house folks and get them off places like the Parkway is commensurate. So that's ongoing, but it's also extremely challenging, especially when you get caught between many of the homeless advocates that I think in some cases are somewhat misinformed about what our intent is, and simply label it as trying to shoot people away and having a black heart and not being compassionate. That's not the case. We're trying to do two things simultaneously. We're trying to find people a place to be rather than pitching a tent on the Parkway, and at the same time making sure the Parkway is safe and clean for people to use.
Next question.
Good evening. My name is Tim Murphy, and I'm a member of the Sacramento Water Forum on the Business Caucus. And I recognize the challenges of the homelessness that you have to deal with, and I appreciate it. Supervisor Certain said it's a two-pronged problem. But in regards to the Parkway, and a comment that was made during the video by one of the speakers, is that the legal challenges are hard to overcome. My concern is with the water quality and the elevated levels of E. coli. Would the declaration of a public health emergency be a tool that could be used to move people off the Parkway because they're essentially using the river as a toilet?
I'll take the question. There may be others that want to address it, and I'm going to defer to Liz Bellis, our Regional Parks Director, on this. Yes, undisputed, there are elevated levels of E. coli in the American River. I'm not a chemist either, but elevated levels of E. coli in a waterway can be attributable to a great many things, including wildlife, including animal. I think anecdotally, we all kind of shake our head and say, well, but look at the camp upstream and their 5-gallon buckets and look where they're putting it. And I think we naturally assume that it's associated to habitation in the Parkway. I am not privy to any acknowledgement so far from the scientists at the Regional Water Quality Control Board or elsewhere who have made the scientific connection to human waste. Now, that's what I know. So Liz, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. But what I've heard so far is that much of that finding has been associated with wildlife. I'm not defending that, I'm just telling you what I've been told. No, it's not. Here. No, here.
Thank you. What Supervisor Serna said is correct. We are in the middle of water quality studies with the Water Quality Board. We have data from upriver so far, and what we're doing is we're taking DNA, or we're taking samples from the river, and it gives us a value of what the E. coli is. And for the high level areas of E. coli, we're saving those samples, we're sending them off to labs, and we're doing DNA testing so that we can determine where they're actually coming from. And the values that we have from upriver so far is it's avian and canine. It is not related to human. We have continued this study down to the Scornia Beach confluence area of the American River Parkway. We're getting all of those E. coli results this summer, and then we'll be taking those to the lab, and we'll have those DNA results in the spring so that we can look at that information.
So we can expect those results in next spring?
Correct.
Could I, excuse me, Kelly, I'm sorry, I'd like to chime in. Thank you, Liz, and I want to very quickly just thank the foundation for hosting this evening. Thank all of you for being here. Thank you for including me and letting me be on this panel. Just want to quickly point out that Supervisor Serna, his advocacy for this parkway is almost matched by Councilmember Jeff Harris, two people who local elected officials here who are tireless advocates for the parkway, and I really thank you for your advocacy, and couldn't agree more with everything Supervisor Serna said, and I look forward to seeing the results of that additional DNA testing. But I want to just address something that Tim mentioned as far as looking at some problems we're seeing on the parkway, and could some of these be a public health emergency, whether it's on the parkway or other encampments that you're seeing. And we have been having these discussions. That is part of the discussion that we are having with both county council and with our public health officer. And I just want to add one more thing in addition to what Supervisor Serna was saying about the Boise versus Martin case, because that case, that Ninth Circuit case came down, the Supreme Court decided not to review that case, so it stands in the Western United States. And then on top of that, then COVID hit, and a lot of restrictions came along with COVID and prevented us from doing more along the parkway and in other places throughout the county and in the city in order to prevent or minimize the spread of the disease. And those were all good decisions. Right now, we are really wrestling with, as we're coming out of the pandemic, what can we do with some of these encampments that are causing problems, that are causing public health problems on the parkway, causing public health problems in our streets and our residential areas, and also keep people safe. So those are just a couple comments I wanted to add on to what Liz and Supervisor Serna said.
And real quick, I know Kelly has a lot of other questions from everyone. We want to make sure we address them. If we're going to pursue a public health angle here to confront the restrictions of Boise, I would argue now, without the conclusions yet from E. coli, that the other part of the public health concern here, as you saw in the video, are hypodermic needles. And as someone who actually was stuck with one in 2012 while cleaning up parts of Discovery Park near the confluence with the foundation during one of their cleanups, I can tell you, you don't want to get stuck with a needle and then have to go through the whole prophylactic process of protecting yourself for the next 21 days. It's not something you want to go through.
We have a question from Facebook before we get to our next audience. Our Facebook question is this: what is, and Diana, this might be for you and for you too, what is the American River Parkway Foundation and Regional Parks doing to directly support those experiencing homelessness?
From the foundation standpoint, our involvement is removing the trash and debris from the parkway. We are not a homeless service provider, so our stewards are out providing bags to those that are on the parkway to at least alleviate some of the trash that's either going into the soil or going into the water. And we are also in tune with what is occurring with other homeless organizations and working with those homeless organizations, especially having them come and talk to our mile stewards. And we have 46 groups of mile stewards. So they're being educated on how to interact with the homeless, the illegal campers on the parkway, as well as what services might be available once they befriend some of those individuals.
as far as regional parks, we also are not a homeless provider, services provider, obviously, but the county is, and so we are working with our fellow county departments, Department of Human Assistance, to make sure that we are identifying campers that are in need of services and doing outreach to them through our ranger staff, through a Parkway navigator, so that we can get services to as many people as possible. And then we also, of course, are removing trash and debris from the Parkway. Through June, just so you know, our staff have removed 709 tons of trash off the American River Parkway. To kind of give that some perspective, the largest elephant in the world is about 7 tons. So we're talking 70 elephants worth of trash in the first 6 months of the Parkway.
Our next question, there in the back.
I have a solution to this homeless trash problem.
Wonderful. Let's hear it.
Right. Well, there's plenty of laws on the books, right? There's littering laws, vagrancy laws, there's all these laws. And I don't think they're being enforced. So when you go into a homeless camp, the county rangers, I don't know, how many littering tickets do they write a year? I'd like to be curious about that. And write a ticket, give it to the homeless person. Clean up their stuff. Okay, it's a fine also. If they're a repeat offender, I'm sorry, they have to go to jail, right? If I did that, if I took my truck full of garbage and went down to the county park and dumped it in the parking lot, I would go to jail, okay? So why is it different? So writing tickets, enforcing the laws that are on the books. You don't have to have emergency measures or any other thing like that. Let's just enforce some of the laws that are on the books.
I appreciate the comment, suggestions. One of the things I think most of us need to kind of comprehend is kind of the order of magnitude of what the asset is in terms of how big the parkway is. I mean, you saw in the video 23 miles and 4,800 acres. When I joined the board in 2010, we were coming out of the Great Recession. There had been major cuts to county services in the years prior. In that first year that I was on the board, we were continuing to make cuts to balance the budget. When I joined the board, we had 12 rangers for the entirety of not just the parkway, but the entire 15,000 acre portfolio of parkland assets that Regional Parks is responsible for. And if you think about what that means in terms of how do you patrol with that few people, how do you do things like, rightfully citing folks that are damaging the ecology or putting their trash in the parkway, or their possession of combustibles. It's very difficult without that enforcement element. Since 2010, I'm glad to say, but it's still very minimal, quite frankly, is that we've tripled the number of rangers. And it's been, quite frankly, a fight sometimes to do it every June during our budget season. The last time we increased the number of rangers was just about a month and a half ago when we went through the exercise again. I would encourage everyone here in terms of takeaways tonight. We, the Board of Supervisors, will be considering our final budget as we do every September. And because of some of the recent fires and certainly my elevated concern about that, I've communicated that to Liz and to our interim CEO, Ann Edwards, that we can't do things the same. Obviously, it's not working. So you can certainly count on having plenty of presentation and recommendations that will come forth from our executive team in September to address that. What I can suggest respectfully of this group, quite frankly, it'd be great to see this kind of turnout in our chambers. If we had this kind of turnout in our chambers that were saying, you know what, do that and more, I think we'd see some difference in disposition by those that give the recommendations to the board. Just to tell our executive team just how important this is. They know that, but their responsibility is to be comprehensive in terms of balancing that budget. And I've worked tirelessly, as some have pointed out, to make sure that it's a priority. In 2015, we actually doubled the amount of general fund contribution for regional parks. But it was, again, it's all relative. We went, what do we go, we doubled it to what, Liz? The general fund contribution. From about 5 to 10, right?
Right, the general fund contribution.
$5 to $10 million for a county of 1.5 million people, a parkway that is serving more than just the county, it's serving the whole region, with, at the time, 20-something rangers, with the amount of acreage. So just kind of let that sink in terms of what we have to work with. Mr. Desmond and I cannot do it alone. Neither can Mr. Harris. The more that we actually have advocacy coming from not just, nonprofits that are doing great work like the foundation, but everyday folks that want to enjoy a safe, clean parkway, the better results we're going to have, quite frankly.
What about creating like a parkway council? There's been discussion of that as well, especially when it comes to the prevention of fires on the parkway.
So the foundation has just created the Fire Safe Council, and so it's called the American River Parkway Fire Safe Council, and it is going to be comprised of Sac City Fire, Sac Metro Fire, all the utilities. For those of you that don't understand, and John Costa is here also with PG&E, but the infrastructure on the parkway of utilities, besides PG&E, SMUD, WAPA, there are a number of water agencies, Sac Suburban, California American Water, they all have wells on the parkway, so all that infrastructure is really, really important to protect. Railroads, exactly. So by having a fire safe council, that will allow us to go after some funding and a really proactive approach between all those engaged and involved to really hopefully curtail fires in the future. And John, you might want to speak a little bit about the infrastructure, just of power.
Yes, thank you. So again, my name is John Costa with PG&E, one of 3 utilities that has, infrastructure that comes through the east from El Dorado County all the way through the Parkway. Our service goes north, south, east, and west. And so when we have fires on the Parkway that impact our infrastructure, so we have steel towers and high-powered lines that go through, you don't feel the impact in Sacramento because we don't provide electricity here. But your neighbors to the west, south, and north of you do. And so when we do have fires, it impacts West Sacramento, for instance. About 40,000 customers get impacted when those lines go under. And we've been asked to find new and creative ways to protect the infrastructure there. Now those are steel towers, very significant steel towers. Those lines are covered lines. So we're doing all we can to ensure that those lines don't create a fire, but we can't prevent the fire from impacting the infrastructure there. So we're working with the foundation, looking at ways to help fund. We have resiliency grants, sustainability grants. We do $5 million to fire safe councils to find interesting and creative ways to address fire hazards and try to prevent fires from being started.
Mr. Cerna, I feel like you dismissed me on my question. It was about enforcement of laws on the parkway. And I got a lot of talk, but I didn't hear an answer. I think that is a very good way to start to address this problem. And does anybody on the panel know or would like to check into how many citations have been written on the parkway?
I have that information for you. And yes, we are actually enforcing our laws. So through June of this year, so January through June, our rangers have made 109 felony arrests, 788 misdemeanor arrests, 1,221 infractions, and that does not include the parking infractions that are infractions of other things, i.e. your littering, your fires, etc.
Specifically about littering and garbage and stuff like that.
I do not have that data in front of me at the moment, but it is published to our website. We have our Ranger monthly reports are published, so you can get that information. It is under the Ranger tab, and if you go to the Ranger tab, we'll find Ranger activity reports, and it is broken out by month.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Tom Giuliani. I'm a volunteer with the Parkway and Friends of the River. I live in Midtown. I'm trying to think of the game Jeopardy where I phrase my statement as a question. I've had a lot of experience in the past 14 months working at Sutter's Landing. Naturally, before I go on, let me say thank you, Diana, for creating that Fire Safety Council. I couldn't emphasize enough how important it is to create every channel of coordination that we can between the various agencies that have some influence over the parkway. I've interacted with parkway rangers, with county sheriffs, with city police, with city park rangers, on rare occasions with the fire department. But one thing that I can say is some of the confusion that we heard a little bit here over what is and isn't allowed is spread out throughout each of your organizations. And even though you may have a lot of information at the top, not all of your employees have it in any way, shape, or form. And it's so important now with the Boise decision and with the Grants Pass decision, and then with the governor's office edict and our own county department with respect to COVID, with these constraints that are placed upon us, to look very carefully at each of those constraints, in particular to look at the judge's opinion in both the Boise and the Grants Pass and read carefully what they're saying, and they very clearly say, we are not tying your hands. We're telling you you cannot arrest someone or fine them for a human activity of merely sleeping. But they do leave the door very wide open and leave a great many tools available to cities and counties to deal with these problems. Having said that, we need to fundamentally change our perspective of the American River Parkway. We talk about it as a jewel of Sacramento. And yet, I haven't once heard tonight, it's a designated wild and scenic river by both California and the federal government. And this is a living jewel. It is a wildlife refuge and sanctuary, and it is a treasure in our backyards. I just returned from Missouri. I'm exaggerating, I saw less than 10 birds along 300 miles of the Missouri River. And here we are with white pelicans and bald eagles and on and on and on. We have a treasure here, but that's wildlife. And if we don't get the human population out of the park at night, this is like Disneyland. It closes at night. Somebody's got to have time for the wildlife to settle down and stay safe. Yeah. So that's the question. Thank you.
I'll comment on that if you don't mind. I thank you for that because I agree with you 100%. Yes, it is a wildlife refuge, and it is. I mean, it's heartbreaking what we're seeing on the Parkway. As someone who born and raised here, like Supervisor Cerna, and the Parkway was my backyard. With respect to what you mentioned with Boise versus Martin, you're also correct about that I think Boise versus Martin was interpreted far too broadly. And I think municipalities are starting to realize that now. We're certainly realizing that now in the county and the city as well, some of our discussions with the city. But also keep in mind that COVID hit, just as people were grappling with Boise versus Martin, COVID hit and put a host of new restrictions on. But now I think something that the county is doing that's really great is I think, Liz, is it weekly that the county departments all meet to talk about with county council?
Yes.
Okay, to talk about with our county council and DHA, DHS, parks, code enforcement, sheriff's department, all these county departments get together and sit down and look at the encampments. They may look at specific encampments, they may look at a larger issue, and they discuss with our county council, okay, is this something that we can address within the confines of Boise versus Martin? And first, how do we go out, obviously with a compassionate approach with DHA and DHS and homeless navigators to try to get people connected with services And if they don't get connected with the services or don't voluntarily get into the services, do we have the legal authority to maybe move that encampment if it's causing a problem, right? If this is not just a matter of sleeping otherwise in a benign way, if it's affecting the infrastructure, if it's blocking traffic, if it's causing a fire hazard. So I think these discussions have just started happening, now would you say within the last couple of months or so, getting together and really, as we're coming out of COVID, figuring out what we can enforce. And I think that you're going to see more of that, as Supervisor Serna mentioned. It's certainly a resource issue from the county, and the board supports the decision to get more rangers out there to see more enforcement. But the flip side of that is also if enforcement and writing littering tickets is not going to get us anywhere unless we can get someone on a path where they're going to permanently stay out of the parkway, because otherwise they'll be coming back. So that's the other part of this equation that we need to be obviously very cognizant of and sensitive about.
And the other thing too is that you don't have a representative from the district attorney's office up here tonight. They're not going to prosecute. They're not going to prosecute someone for littering. They're not prosecuting, and it has to do with their own resource challenges. And send it to jail in an already crowded jail system. Someone who's littering, to answer your question to the gentleman in the back, doesn't make it right. Just it's a reflection of being resource scarce for the challenge in front of us. I will tell you that despite the Boise decision, it's certainly not keeping us from finding ways to work within the construct of that decision. Part of the reason I'm dressed somewhat informally tonight is because I was actually out near the confluence of the Sacramento and American Rivers today with Councilmember Katie Valenzuela, who some of you may know has made homelessness kind of her #1 issue. And one of the things that she, along with the rest of the city council, is doing is looking at these safe ground sites. And safe ground was actually mentioned at the tail end of this video. We're looking at a possible site that is intended specifically to bring people out of the woods of the river and into a safe place where they can actually get services, where we can stabilize folks and get them into permanent supportive housing or traditional shelter somewhere other than the banks of the American Sacramento River. So it's not like we're not trying to work within the rules of that decision. We're not letting grass grow under our feet here. We're working hand in hand, especially those that have parts of the large parts of the city that overlap in the districts that we represent.
Thank you. Next question. Go ahead.
My name's Roland Brady. I'm an emeritus professor of geology. I taught watershed hydrology at CSU for 28 years. I'm a mile steward on Steelhead Creek, which runs into Discovery Park and along the Garden Highway. I've been working out there for 7 years with my collaborator, Crystal Tobias. And one of the things that I can assure you is that the debris is not just an aesthetic problem. That trash gets into the water, it armors the bottom of the channel, it makes a surface that burrowing animals cannot get through. There are lots of other impacts besides the debris from homeless camps. The soil is compacted 3 to 5 times more than is usual. Seeds do not germinate. Tree limbs have been removed, which causes the soil to heat up. There's a segmentation of the ecological corridor. The most sensitive part of the whole parkway ecologically, aside from fires, ecologically is the narrow riparian corridor along Steelhead Creek and along the American River. So my question is, why cannot you establish a 100-foot setback consistent with what you see in national parks and state parks from the waterway? No camping behind sign that will allow this most vulnerable area to regenerate, which would be entirely consistent with medical evidence.
We'd like to address that.
No, I actually think it's a great idea. I think the Parkway is a big place, and it's not monolithic. We have different, as you know very well, we have different habitats that spread across those 4,800 acres, different sensitivities. We have special status species presence in certain parks. I have a little, I would want to approach the subject of signage that tells people where to camp elsewhere on the Parkway with some trepidation, only because I don't know that I want to get in the business of sanctioning camping on the Parkway at this point. which I don't think you're suggesting. But I think what I heard you say is, can we and should we be looking into some very, very special parts of the parkway that if we find campers, we can somehow get them settled somewhere else, maybe without an obvious sanctioning of camping elsewhere in the parkway. I think it's worth looking at. I think part of the safe grant approach that, again, the foundation and others at with the city leadership and county leadership, I think that's a wise way to go right now. And I've actually turned my opinion around on that in recent years. I was very reluctant when I first joined the board to to be an endorser of tent camps. I didn't think that tent camps were really the way to warehouse people. The challenge is that the number of homeless in our community has grown so substantially, especially with the pandemic. I don't know that we have any other choice but to look at least temporarily, how do we get people stabilized in a clean, sanitary way? And especially with an eye towards making sure it's not in a place where you're going to cause irreparable environmental damage. So I appreciate the suggestion.
One of the questions that we got up front, and this might go for you, Nico, is what about removing excess fuel and underbrush? Should that be cleared? Obviously, there's a cost to that, right? And resources, but just like we do for wildfire season, can you clear some of the brush? Or is that a park? How do you work with the park on that?
It's something that we have actually worked on in the past. And I'll tell you, it really brought us together. Most of you probably remember in 2014 on the 4th of July, we had a very large fire out there. We evacuated the water park. We shut down the soccer game, and we're about to postpone the fireworks display on the 4th of July, which was hosted by Cal Expo. And that incident brought us all together for some conversation, and the foundation was great in gathering us together. And it was in the years after that where we were all at the table, and we did some experimental fuel management in the off season, which raises some controversy in itself, because what we're doing is burning off some of the annual grasses that grow and then they die. But that is really what carries the fires, the light flashy fuels that are out there that get into what we call in the fire service the ladder fuels. That's the vegetation that's around the trees, and then it gets up into the trees, and then you have those large catastrophic incidents. So with the removal of the light flashy fuels, the annual grass, in a very controlled fashion, working with all the partners, we saw some success. And I think primarily that brought us together. And I know I drive by there now, and one of the ideas that we had back then was having goats, and right now what I'm seeing out there is some of the sheep that are out there. So there's definitely some effort, and it was great for us. And I want to be at the table for us to understand how we can work with the other agencies to manage those fuels to prevent some of the fires. And I would say, to answer that, those have been in place for about 7 or 8 years, and we're seeing some of the effectiveness. But I jump forward to what we're all talking about today, and what we have is a larger population of people out there. And I know some of our stats, and I think even some of the handouts for this event say that the majority of those fires, about 70%, are human caused. I would say it's probably greater than that. Those are what are proven, to be human caused, because they were next to an encampment. So it's just the introduction of a new challenge.
And I want to kind of jump on that as well. The county is spending about $167,000 this year on grazing in the parkway. We're looking to the board for providing us with some additional resources. We're looking at expanding that so we can do more year-round grazing on the parkway to help remove some of those fire fuels. When you get to the controlled burns, you got to have very specific circumstances that are conducive to those happening. A lot of times when the weather conditions might be okay here in Sacramento, unfortunately there are other fires going on in the state, and some of the fire departments are responding to those, but we don't have those resources to do those controlled burns. But that has been a tool in our toolbox that we have used since 2014, And again, if you go to our website, we do have our fire fuel reduction plans posted every year. It's under the Ranger tab, once again, so that you can look at all the plans and everything that we are completing each year.
Thank you. Who has the next question in the back? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kat Kalima. I'm with Dr. Michelle Stevens from Sacramento State University, part of the Bushy Lake.
A little bit louder, please.
My name's My name is Kat Kalima. I'm with Dr. Michelle Stevens at Sacramento State University on the Bushy Lake Restoration Project right behind Cal Expo. I kind of have a two-parter question. My first one is, California is a fire ecosystem. Fires have naturally occurred along California for many years and have been managed by indigenous community members. So my first part is kind of what is being done and what kind of communication is being done with indigenous communities to better manage the fires that already naturally occur here. Because we have been trying to work to create fire resilient ecosystems behind Cal Expo, not just fire prevention, because fires do occur here and they're totally natural. And I guess the second question I have is also what fire policies are in place to help protect wildlife, because we have been out there many times before and doing our research project on western pond turtles, as well as being out there protecting swainson's and hawkcrests. And we have been out there while fires have occurred, and we have called the fire department, and they have told us that there is something that can be done and that we should no longer call the fire department because the areas that are burning are already in charge. But for us, we look at areas and there is still debris that is still vulnerable to fires, even though the rest of the surrounding area is covered or has already been burned. So I would just like to know kind of what policies and what things are in place for the fire department to better help the wildlife and not just keep things burning so that they protect infrastructure and homes.
So I'm going to reach back to my prior profession. I worked in the Forest Service, and it's been probably almost 30 years ago, but we absolutely did manage fires back then. We managed fires that naturally occurred. Those naturally occurring fires start by lightning, and they're not a threat to property or people. And you're absolutely right. You know better than I do, but those are good for the forest floor and giant sequoias, and it's part of the life cycle of what's out there. I would be challenged to say that there's naturally occurring fires that happen in the parkway. And on top of that, they are absolutely threatening property and life because of the amount of people that are around there and the properties that we've seen that are threatened. So, for the fire service, we put life and property first, and the environment. It's up there and it's a concern, but when those parkway fires happen, we have to try to get the people out as quickly as possible. We're protecting all the critical infrastructure that you heard about with the power lines. Oftentimes we shut down Business 80. Those fires become such a nuisance and a hazard that we have to extinguish them as quickly as possible. And the environment, of course, is in their place at that time.
I have a question from our Facebook folks who are watching. Thanks again for joining us online tonight. What is being done to address individuals who refuse services and shelter? Who wants to take this one?
Well, I think, I'll start, and I'm sure Supervisor Stern will have more eloquent words about, or articulate words about it after I fumble. That's a huge challenge, and what we're seeing in the state of California, and every place that's dealing with homelessness. One thing I think is a step in the right direction is the Board of Supervisors unanimously adopted Laura's Law, which is an assisted outpatient treatment program to get help to folks who are suffering from some kind of mental health crisis where they cannot manage their own affairs. Because right now, speaking from someone who's a prior law enforcement guy, someone you want to get into help, it used to be all you could do is either take them on a 5150 hold, welfare institutions hold, 72 hours hold, which usually didn't last for 72 hours, usually was a revolving door, or you take someone to jail. And a lot of times, someone could really only get significant treatment if they're in jail, but that is not the right way to approach the problems that people are suffering who are dealing with mental illness and addiction. there is a conservatorship process that is very, very difficult. This Laura's Law, which actually passed, I don't know, a couple of decades ago now, I think, in the state legislature, which is a specific to get people into treatment, and sometimes against their will, if necessary. I think that's a very good tool now that we have. It's a court supervised process, and so some folks who will not voluntarily go into treatment when they need it and they're in crisis, they will be eligible for that kind of situation. But there are others that, if I think, as we come up with safe grounds, or you probably heard about the city's master siting plan today, as we come up with more capacity, we will be in a better situation to go to folks and say, look, you can't camp here because it's causing a problem to the parkway or to the business or to the infrastructure. We have an alternative for you, an alternative that is safe and that is sanitary. You don't have to go in there. We can't make you go into that, but it is an option for a lot of people. And as long as those are set up and structured the right way, serving the right populations in the right way with the appropriate supportive services, I do think a lot of folks will go into those. During the video, I think someone made the comment about the vast majority of people camping on the parkway are methamphetamine users, and I think that's probably accurate. And a lot of those folks, and if you don't catch them at the right time, they will never go into something voluntarily. But I think with consistent outreach and the right alternatives in place, you can get some of those folks connected to services voluntarily. And if they don't go voluntarily and they're a danger to themselves or others, we do have some additional tools in the county.
Now, I agree completely with Supervisor Desmond's response, and I'll add that service resistance is probably the most fundamentally frustrating part of what our social workers do day in and day out. I've been with them on ride-alongs where some of the folks that are suffering homelessness are extremely candid, and they'll tell you they don't want to avail themselves of services because they don't want to be away from their access to meth. Or they don't want, they believe there's no place for their pet, or no place for their partner, no place for their possessions. And the compassionate party says, if I was in a similar circumstance and I basically had a shopping cart full of possessions and that's all I had, and I had a companion and a dog or something, you can kind of understand that. But at the very same time, just because someone believes that they should not take services while it continues to impact the rest of the community, that's not good policy, period. In addition to Laura's Law, which we passed, and we did so, I think, with some vigor and interest in making sure that things begin to change more so when it comes to those that have mental health challenges. One of the things that I've been a broken record on, and Diana can attest to this and others, and I was very glad to see it mentioned very clearly in the video, is methamphetamine in particular. Yes, substance abuse, alcoholism, but it's a travesty in terms of how that has contributed to homelessness. But methamphetamine in particular is very different because it permanently affects your psychology. And it's hard to bring someone back from the brink of meth addiction, more so than some of the other addictions. One of the things that we're actually budgeted to begin doing is having a comprehensive meth treatment program when we do, and forgive the bad pun, when we have somewhat of a captive audience, when people are in jail and they are meth addicted, we want to have a place for them immediately. When they come out of jail, they're not just dumped in downtown somewhere. They're going into a treatment program. They're going to work with our collaborative court system, with drug court, and have a place where they can get the treatment and break the cycle of that addiction. Without the ability to do that, I think you're just going to continue to jail folks. They come out, it repeats the cycle, they look for a fix. They want to live in a bucolic setting along the American River Parkway and continue to feed it. And that's a non-starter. So we are not afraid to try some new interventions. That happens to be two that we've just mentioned, but certainly it doesn't mean that we should stop exploring other ways to break the cycle of service resistance.
What's the timing? I feel like some of the conversations that we've had tonight is just like, okay, when is this going to happen?
So,
a lot of talk, and then whether it's housing or these services, when.
So we've actually, in my insistence, had a methamphetamine task force that's been established for a couple of years now, They have put forth some recommendations that are going to feed into this new program, and that's budgeted for 21-22. So I fully expect that this program will be up and running by the beginning of 22.
The Shore Center, Phil also maybe mentioned that. Sorry? The Shore Center? Well, you were involved in setting it up, so I think that's...
Well, are you talking about with Councilmember Harris?
Yeah.
No, and I think the city too has also recognized that meth addiction is a fundamental problem that's very unique unto itself, and the city, and I don't know if Councilmember Harris is still here, to his credit, I think he heard loud and clear that meth is one of the biggest contributing factors for the continuation of someone's circumstance of homelessness, and so they too have been very focused on that very specific issue.
Yeah, well, my name is Jay Hurley. I'm a retired engineer. I use the Parkway. I love biking along it. I see a lot of tremendous energy from the government side, from the voluntary side here. And the thing that strikes me is we don't have enough volunteers to do these cleanups. Like, you need to do them almost every week. And if you had, I mean, I'm not trying to be coy about it, but if high schools, for example, maybe, they get excited about doing things for the community. Maybe there's groups of volunteers that are not being tapped. Maybe there's incentives that you can give to volunteers, whether it's a parking pass or something for so many hours of work on the Parkway or something, but it seems like everybody's doing something as much as they can with whatever money they have. You need like 5 times more volunteers to do 5 times more cleanups. And if I was a homeless person and I keep seeing this group of 4 or 5 people coming by my little site, kind of making me feel uncomfortable, at least maybe the ones that care somewhat would find another place to hang out. I mean, the ones that are really over the edge, I mean, that's a massive problem.
So your solution is offer incentive.
Yeah, is there incentives? Is there a way to get that information out? Because I think the community wants things to get better.
So I want to make sure I understand. You want incentives for the illegal campers or incentives for volunteers?
Volunteers that are helping clean up the Parkway, like we have monitors every mile.
We have our mile stewards, and we also do sustainable Saturdays, and we have cleanups. We average about 3 cleanups a week with with volunteers. So I encourage everyone in here, if you've never volunteered with the Parkway, to look onto our website and look. I mean, Jay, I think it would be great if you came out and volunteered once. I mean, you've just set yourself up.
Sounds like I'm
So to come out, and so on a given year, we have over 7,000 volunteers that put in over 19,000 hours. So volunteers, we have a number of volunteers, and for those of you that are in the audience that are volunteers, thank you. We can't thank you enough. You know that. So, and I also encourage all of you, September 18th, the Great American River Cleanup. We have 22 sites up and down the Parkway. Please sign up now on our website. Get out there, clean. We just did, as Kelly mentioned earlier, we did the cleanup a couple weeks ago, which was down at mile 3. And, when you pick up 60,000 pounds in 3 hours.
Can the news folks in Sacramento advertise for it?
Yes,
we put it everywhere.
Yes, they can. They have. I think they have.
And there's a flyer also out in the front for anyone that's interested. Tiffany is carrying it around now.
Next question, please.
My name is Adele Kruger. I'd like to answer this question right now, since I'm a mile steward. We cannot go into the homeless garbage dumps. We can't do that. If they're there, you don't want to go in there, and we can't take their stuff away because it's their property. So we have tons of volunteers, believe me. It's a problem of what we're allowed to do. But my comment is, it seems to me the Board of Supervisors could do 2 things. Number 1, narrow the focus of the Boise or Grants Pass decision so that we can do something instead of just letting them tell us what to do with our Parkway. And secondly, what is the board doing to establish a homeless camp and get them out of the parkway?
Good question. So with regard to the first one, and the question, the way I understood it was, what are you doing what is the board doing to really specifically, look at what Boise permits you to do and what it doesn't? And are there some perhaps different circumstances that our legal team at the county should be looking at? The answer is absolutely yes. And as Liz can attest, part of my frustration that was expressed in some communiques only about a month ago to our executive team is to do exactly that. Because I'll tell you, nothing quite frankly pisses me off more than seeing a plume of smoke off in the distance. It's the parkway. You go back home, you see the 5 o'clock news. You see it is, in fact, a fire that was either already determined to be human started or it's very likely. And in the image that you see, you'll see a propane tank, you'll see a barbecue, you'll see a lighter on the ground. Those are all not permissible. Doesn't matter if you're homeless or not. You can't have ignition sources on the parkway. You can't have combustibles that are intended for cooking on the parkway. In my estimation, again, not an attorney, but that to me constitutes a very specific threat, not just to the parkway, but to the people that are, purporting to use these items. Because they're going to be some of the first that our first responders are going to go in and have to save, God forbid, that it becomes a conflagration that we can't, control. So that's actually being reviewed as I speak by our county council. And then, I'm sorry, the other question?
What is the county doing to establish a tent city or someplace where the people can go?
So I can tell you, and I would encourage Mr. Desmond, if he wants to respond to this as well, carefully, that we are very engaged, and by we I mean both districts, so districts 1 and districts 2. And by the way, where our districts meet is Ethan. So I represent primarily the city of Sacramento. Supervisor Desmond represents primarily the unincorporated county that's east of Ethan, including the communities of Peril and Carmichael. We have been working very collaboratively since he's been on the board, quite frankly, since he's been seated. And we're working with the mayor's office, we're working with individual council members, with the city to look at the prospect of having some county sites. I wish I could give you more details, but to do so, I think would actually compromise the ability of us to move that forward.
But I will thank you, Supervisor Stern. It has been a very good collaboration, and I know that's not, you want to see results right now. I want to see results right now. I'm as impatient with government as anybody, and it's very frustrating. But I think not only have we been working together and are really in solidarity in our advocacy for this parkway and finding some kind of site, some kind of solution that allows us to do more to clean up the most problematic encampments. But also looking countywide, we're looking at other places throughout the county, looking at vacant county properties. And we also have a 2x2 effort, a formal 2x2 effort at the county between the county and the city too. So I think you're really seeing a change in the level of coordination and level of collaboration between the city and the county. And that in and of itself, I think is a good thing, because this is not just a city problem or a county problem or a parkway problem. This is a regional problem, and we need to be working on it better together. So I am very optimistic that we will identify some sites. You'll see some sites that are going to start making a difference, hopefully within the next few months. But I agree with Supervisor Stern. We cannot get more specific right now.
But I also believe that this is also our responsibility for everyone that's sitting in this room and for everyone that cares about the parkway, that as that information comes forward, we will distribute it so that then when the issues come to the board and to those other elected bodies, that you represent the community and the concern. You can be that voice of the parkway.
Beautiful segue into my question. I don't have any credentials. The only credential is I'm on the parkway every day. It keeps me in Sacramento, honestly. When I have company come, it's the first place I take them. So what I want to know, what are the top 3 things this common person could do to help? Just give me the top 3 things. What can I do to help you fix this?
I'd say number 1, volunteer.
Number 2, either write your county board member, and even better, show up at a hearing, do a Zoom if we're still doing the Zoom thing, but advocate forcefully with the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors.
And number 3, get all your friends and neighbors and everybody to do the same things, 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Next question.
Thank you for that. I want to say that I appreciate that I heard tonight that you actually are looking into the ability to narrowly read Boise. And this gentleman is correct. When I read Boise, I don't understand why they keep throwing that at us as the only reason we can't do anything. Because Boise was written to say the city of Boise could not issue a citation to a person based on the status of their being homeless. They said nothing about you couldn't issue a citation if they were committing a crime, committing a misdemeanor, endangering the health and safety, which is why I'm happy to hear that we're opening that window to look at the health and safety ways that you can circumvent that. However, you run into the dilemma, which you very eloquently pointed out to the gentleman that says just ticket them all. Well, you know, it doesn't really solve anything. And I heard you say that you don't have staff, you don't have money. So in this 3 things that we can do as common people who just get angry when we go out and see this, okay, we can, you know, volunteer. I have done that. We can attend or write to the county supervisors. And I mean, how do we get you guys more money or tools? Is that, I mean, because I'm just sitting here hearing, it's like there isn't really a solution. Although I'm hearing that, I'm happy to hear that you're not just throwing out that we're blocked.
No, I appreciate the comment. So I believe, you know, most of Sacramento recognizes the Parkway as a valued, very valued, unique asset. And I guarantee all 5 members of the board supervisors does the same. And we have our own politics, you know, we have our own perspectives, and the uniqueness of our districts is always present in mind. However, one of the things that I think most folks need to realize when we're dealing with a budget of over $6 billion annually is that there are going to be trade-offs, right? And so that's going to the minds of all 5 of us. What are the trade-offs? If we take more money for the Parkway, in some members' minds, perhaps that they believe that it's going to compromise what might be also important to them. When I said earlier, show up at a meeting, write us, advocate forcefully, the more that happens, this comes from experience being on the board now almost 11 years, and I've seen it happen, where minds have been changed in real time at the dais because of testimony that we get, because of letters that we cite. Quite frankly, make it uncomfortable. Make it uncomfortable for us. That if we're not making the Parkway the priority that it should be, then call us on it. I freely admit that's what I welcome. And let me just be clear. I have no allegiance to the political office when it comes to the Parkway. I have allegiance to the Parkway. So when it comes to can we do something better for the Parkway, it doesn't have to always be the brand of the county that is doing it. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. I asked our county council a couple months ago, can I actually sue the same county that I work for, that I've been elected to serve? That's something that's been on my mind for some time now. You know, and it's been stated by others, perhaps he takes a lawsuit at this point, which is a very unfortunate testament to where we find ourselves. But believe me, that's my soapbox in terms of my position. It's not about political self-preservation. It's about where can we find the resources and how do we accomplish that.
Thank you for saying that. I think sometimes we're all wondering what happens behind closed doors, right? What those conversations are, so I appreciate you saying that. You want to say something, John?
Do you mind if I step in? So, as a board member of the foundation, you're asking, you know, what can government do? And Supervisor Cerna's, you know, there are resource constraints. So today that you guys saw this video, I would encourage you to share it, right? Share it far and wide, communicate to everybody about what's happening, right? Because a picture says 1,000 words. Now, the foundation has created and convened the group to have this conversation, to hopefully leverage you as volunteers to put pressure on the county, right? Similar to what Phil's talking about. Thank you, Phil.
Bring it on.
I would say the next thing, though, is, the foundation is looking at opportunities like the Fire Safe Council. So you're talking about funding. Those councils can go out and get funding beyond the county to provide the needed resources to address the issue on the parkway. So I would say that the foundation is taking the lead to try to do that, to creating that environment. And I would just ask that you encourage others to help invest, volunteer, and make like the foundation and the Fire Safe Council move this issue forward, right? Addressing the issues on the parkway.
Is it a money issue, do you think? Do we need to help raise money for services? Is that something?
Absolutely. I mean, it comes down to two things: volunteers and funding, right? So I work for a corporation, and we give money. We give a lot of money, but we are limited to what we can give, right? But one of the pillars that we focus on, safety and the environment, the Fire Safe Council does that. So we as a company give $5 million annually to Fire Safe Council. That is a resource that the Parkway can tap into to address some of the issues as it relates to the fuels and other things on the Parkway.
One quick follow-up. First of all, County Council did tell me that I know you cannot sue yourself, so I did exhaust that.
However, you can sue them.
Yes, you can sue us, right? And I've had this conversation with Diana too, and some others. There are other models out there besides just a county being the steward of a regional park, a set of regional park assets. And this is not, please don't take offense, Liz, to this at all, but because I admire the profession that she stepped into to manage this unique asset. But if the better mousetrap, the better way to do this is something other than the county being the steward, then let's go there. Let's have that conversation. Let's be serious about it. Let's look at other models, one of which is East Bay Park District. So in Central Park in New York. So there are other models out there. Again, the allegiance is not to protect the county's brand or interest in this at all costs. At least not from my perspective. Maybe some others hold that thought, but not me, not as a native Sacramentan.
Go ahead.
Hi there. My name's Deborah Dodd, and my husband and I use the Parkway quite a bit. We're out there all the time, just like this lady was mentioning. And the kind of address with
Can you hear
Speak into the mic. There you go. Is it green?
really close.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. Should I start over?
Please.
Okay. My name's Deborah Dodd. My husband and I live in Midtown, and we use the Parkway quite a bit. We've been involved in organized closer. Oh my God, I feel like I'm eating it. We've been involved in organized cleanups. We go out there and do it informally on our own. One of the things we've come across on the organized is we've gone out to behind Blue Diamond, and also we live close to Sutter's Landing. Both places are a mess. And I know at Sutter's Landing they have periodic trash cans kind of down the parkway in that new paved area, but they're too small. They're always full. Blue Diamond doesn't have anything out there. So I'm wondering if it's been discussed about providing big trash bins and having regular trash pickup service, and also having porta potties that are also regularly serviced for the people that are out there. So some of those people want to keep their area clean. That's their home. And we may not think of it as a home, but it really is their home, and they're trying to normalize as much as possible. So providing that one resource to them might help some of that. And with porta potties, we don't have to say anything about that. We're keeping all the out of the river. So I'm encouraging the county to do that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Hazeltine. I don't live in your county. I have been a privileged guest in your county. If you have met me on the pathway near the white fence that has the sheep and goats behind it, I'm one of 3 people under contract that Liz is entrusted with eating your weeds and my sheep and goats. I've been listening, and there's a lot of talk around homelessness, and we see it, we live with it, we work with it. trying to formulate a question to go back to 6 individuals on a panel in this forum, you have challenged me greatly, so here goes. Since we started grazing, and you have seen the results, Liz, if you can answer the question, how many structures have been threatened by fire after I've grazed? So you don't, I've already given you the answer. With that knowledge and with what we saw last year, where none of our human efforts had any impact whatsoever in stopping fire when you have over 2,000 lightning strikes, we're looking at the source. But might this be the most opportune time to look at creative ways between the foundation? Thank you. Liz, got to meet you tonight. Thanks for signing my paycheck. I really appreciate it. Haven't met the rest of you. PG&E down in the Bay in Richmond in 2014, we pointed out that, look, if you will take the dollars that you're spending on a small thing and leverage it against a bigger thing, might some of your maintenance dollars for your transmission line through the corridor be applied to a bigger scope of grazing? And might you guys invite us in and we can collaboratively look for ways to graze more, cheaper, and keep all of us safer?
Thank you. So I would like to address that. Absolutely, we would love to work with you further to do more grazing on the parkway, more year-round grazing on the parkway. What we have been doing since 2014 is, when we are able to get the dollars in place, we're starting our grazing in the spring. That's kind of too late. So if we can start doing this year-round, we're going to have a much better managed natural resource. And again, I'm very thankful for the additional resources that the board has approved for us in June so that we can accomplish that goal.
Who has the mic? Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Carol Paris, and I am a regular Parkway user. And one thing I've noticed is that there apparently is policies in place to prevent large-scale camping in places like McKinley Park, Capitol Mall Park, Sutter's Fort, Beals Point. And why is it that the camps are situated in this one particular area, mile 6 on down, when we also don't see these kinds of encampments on mile 10 on up? So it appears that there's policies in place to prevent camps in public parks. So Parkway is a public park. So what is the difference in these that's being applied in these city parks versus what's happening on the Parkway?
Thank you.
Well, Liz, why don't you start, and I'll chime in.
So I do want to echo what Supervisor Cerna has said, is that we are looking at that on what other tools do we have in our toolbox? What can we do differently on the Parkway to emulate some of those same things that are happening in other park systems? One of the things that we also need to keep in mind is the Parkway, the lower reach of the Parkway is also very close to some of the social services that are provided for homeless, and that is why they are attracted to be in that area. It's unfortunate that all that impact is concentrated in a one kind of area. But you're absolutely right as far as we need to work with our county council to figure out how we can narrow that decision, or narrow the definition of the Boise decision, so that we can take back our Parkway.
And I was going to say the same thing. Obviously, it's a matter of geography. You have the concentration because people are closer to the services there. But there are some other practical things that are really simple things. I can tell you as a former highway patrol officer who worked in the Capitol, a big reason you don't have people camping on Capitol grounds is because you have a law enforcement presence that's there 24/7 and sprinklers. In a lot of parks, believe it or not, you don't see camping in a lot of parks because of sprinklers. And then if someone actually vandalizes a sprinkler, then that's another violation that you can take action on. But that is the reality why you don't see it nearly as much in some of these other parks. It's proximity to services and just some of these practical distinctions between the Parkway and other parks.
Hi, I'm Mark Baker. I clean up at Sutter's Landing, and for the past month or so, I've been cleaning up the North Shore from Sutter's Landing. bringing in probably 3 tons of garbage in the last month. But I've noticed the goats, I guess the goat guy left, but I cleaned up, a week ago I cleaned up an area, and I thought I had it pretty well cleaned up, and then the goats came in, and I was there today, I took out another 1,000 pounds of garbage, just by I-80, because the goats had opened the whole area up. And I just hope the Parkway organizes around that. I mean, when the goats go through, there should be a cleanup crew that goes along with them after that, because it's just amazing how exposed everything is, and all of a sudden you know whether it's an abandoned camp or not, or what, you know. But just, I hope that the Parkway cleans up around the goats, or works with that. Because the goats are an asset, I think, you know, for a lot of things. So.
I absolutely agree, and Mark, nice to meet you. I know we've exchanged some emails, so it's nice to put face to name, and thank you so much for all your volunteer work. You're right, once we have the goats go through there, we do see a lot more of what is needed for cleanup, and your idea it's a very good one.
Thanks, Mark. Next question.
I'm Steve Green, say the American River Association. The county has a very strong ordinance with regard to illegal cooking equipment at the campsites. The county does not enforce that ordinance. Why can't you team your park rangers with sheriff deputies to inspect those campsites and confiscate the barbecues, the other incendiary cooking equipment that's there?
Hi, Stephen. I'd like to address that as well. You are correct. We do have that ordinance in place. We are actually doing a lot of directed enforcement in areas near Discovery Park, Bannon Island, and also Sutter's Landing Park, where we are removing and confiscating that cooking equipment, because you're right, it is definitely what is starting some of these fires, and so we are enforcing that ordinance.
So, am I next?
Excuse me, before you start, I just want to add to the response that Liz provided. I agree with you. We've had a very, very strict ordinance on the books after a rash of fires, I think about 5 years ago, where we made it very crystal clear that this is not going to be tolerated. I hate to go back to it, but it has to do with the ability to enforce based on the number of folks that do the enforcing. So again, if you're going to start to think specifically about what to help us achieve at the county during the right times, during budget season especially, more park rangers isn't going to solve everything, but it's going to make it more likely that people aren't going to dump their trash or have these combustibles if they're routinely being visited and having their combustibles and ignition sources taken away.
So thank you. Nick Broad. I live in Fair Oaks. I live literally on the edge of Bannister Park, which is literally on the edge of the American River Trail. And it's a frightening experience to live there when the fires come and the water drop helicopters are over your head. And you say, what a wonderful place to live that we have these features. And I also noticed it's 90 degrees outside and has been for about 3 months, and it'll probably be that way or hotter for another 3 months. And it's not going to rain till November probably. I think we have to start taking things into our own hands in terms of defending our area here, the American River Trail. A demonstration project happened a couple of weeks ago on the park. It was a partnership with the Fair Oaks Parks Department, the American River Trail, and the county. And these 1,000 goats ate all the way down the trail and the neighbor's property. The first thing I noticed was the ground can't burn again. Efficient, effective. The second thing I didn't realize, which was the homeless camps moved away. And the third one, it was easy to see the trash. Yep. So it became efficient to pick it up. So it was a threefer. And it was really efficient and effective in the gullies and the dips. So I was very grateful for that. Now, 1,000 goats is great. How about 10,000? How about a strategic plan paid for by collaboration of all of you and about, so that we defend Fair Oaks, Citrus Heights, Carmichael, the park, because if we don't take things into our own hand, Mother Nature's not going to do it, right? We're going to burn. And the last part is it has to be environmentally friendly because the park is friendly. So I'd love you guys to have a strategic plan working across all your different areas to fund one agency to be in charge of this, because if we don't do it ourselves, it won't work. We can't solve it unless we do it bit by bit by bit by bit.
So what you just proposed is the whole reason, that's the whole nexus for the Fire Safe Council, where everyone's working together, and what are the different methods? Is it control burns? Is it goats? Is it different, there's all kinds of different opportunities out there. And as well as what can the neighbors that abut the parkway do, which the county's already working with a number of those as well. So that's the nexus for the Fire Safe Council.
Before we leave that thought, we do have a free encroachment permit that we offer for all homeowners that have property adjacent to our park system. You can get this from our department, where we basically give you permission to do additional clearing up to 50 feet from your property line, so that, again, it's a voluntary thing, but it would greatly assist us in keeping your home safe. And that is available on our website under our fire safety plans.
We're in our last half hour now, so just wanted to give you a heads up for timing. We have a question here.
Hi guys, my name is Sydney Tan. So I don't have too much of a question for you guys. I have heard a very common theme about public health and safety during this meeting, and I am 100% an advocate for that. That being said, I don't think that public health and safety should only include our privileged housed community. For me, my suggestion would be challenging everyone, not just our panel, not just you guys, but our entire community, to prioritize the public health and safety of all. Like you guys were saying, I was hearing several great things about mental health help, and meth help. All of those programs are fantastic, and without funding from people who can afford it, the homeless problem will only continue in one giant cycle. So I really do suggest that our priorities switch, not removing homeless people from one area to another, because they'll move to an area that somebody else loves. Maybe not us, but maybe somebody else. So just think about it as a whole picture versus moving people out of your way. That's it.
Okay, I have the mic and haven't had it for a couple minutes, so go ahead. So my name is Betsy Weiland, and I have worked on the Parkway for over 20 years with, say, the American River Association, and with Friends of Sutter's Landing and Friends of the Riverbanks, as well as other organizations. But since Sutter's Landing Park has been talked about a little bit this evening, I've heard it several different directions. I'd just like to give an update on what is actually happening down there, and so that it's a positive. And I want to acknowledge some of the positive work that is going on when there's collaboration and when everybody gets on the same page. So Sutter's Landing Park, as of July last year, it was in a lot of trouble because COVID shut down everything. It shut down our monthly education programs, Friends of the Riverbank, so we didn't have regular regular things going on down there. To date, though, over the past year, through a great collaboration with county regional parks, with city parks, with our sheriff's dispatch, our park rangers, our fire department, we're still got a little work to do there, but there's conversation going on. We do have, okay, city parks, yes, the garbage could not handle the garbage cans could not handle the garbage. They brought in a dumpster. We have a dumpster now. There are porta potties out there. In fact, 4 more porta potties are being brought in as we speak because of the use down there. County regional parks, city parks gives us excellent, excellent garbage service. County Parks has just recently, they are servicing our garbage cans on the beach now every single day. City Parks services along the Two Rivers Trail as well as our dumpster. We have a great volunteer program. We are out there every day of the week. Saturdays we have a regular volunteer day. We call it our Park Beautification Day. And we have had through the summer, we have had people every Saturday from the park opening to park closing to give out trash bags, to have ice water available for everybody, to give out information about rules and about anything, any questions people have. So, and we work with parking enforcement too, because the parking lot is so impacted by the amount of people that come. So I just want to thank the county parks in particular, the county, the city parks, and things can be done. They can be made better. We started with 11 plus illegal camps last July. Significant camps that were sitting right in the middle of hundreds of people coming on the weekends in particular to recreate. They're gone. How'd you get rid of them? We worked with the county park rangers to implement the tools that they had available in order to get control over the situation, as well as having just a regular presence down there, keeping the park clean and as safe as we could make it. So it's a partnership, and county parks and the rangers are really good at looking at the tools that they can employ. And so that's an update on Sutter's Landing Park. I invite you all to come down and visit and and volunteer. I'm with Diana. Sign up and volunteer. If everybody, it's intense and it takes a lot of effort, but you can make things better.
Thank you for
Betsy, I wanted to follow up on that just for the general population to know that through June, so January through June, we have removed 878 camps from the parkway. So we are removing them all over. I know it doesn't feel like we are moving enough of them, but we are working on that.
Hello, my name is Kara Allen. I manage the Lower American River Conservancy Program for the Wildlife Conservation Board. And one thing that I heard in the video that I actually have heard from one of the panelists also is that we need to bring more legitimate uses to the parkway to keep the illegitimate out. And so a solution I have is that we look to the parkway plan for those proposed facilities that are in those areas that are hotspots for encampments, and trying to bring capital improvement projects to those areas so that we have more, proper use of the parkway. And, the homeless, we know that they're trying to, get out of the eye of people so that they can do their things, and abuse their substances. And so if we bring more people, maybe that will keep them out of the parkway because they don't have those hiding spots. So I'm wondering, is there any projects on the table for those areas that are heavily infested with homeless encampments, that are capital improvement projects?
Yes, yes there are. In fact, the Parkway Plan has identified a project called the Wood Lake Gateway, and the purpose of that project is to develop the Wood Lake access area with parking lot, restrooms, and a boat launch. And that would absolutely help us bring more equitable use to the lower reaches of the parkway, because the lower reaches it does not have as many areas for you to access the parkway as the upper reaches. And so that is something that we are exploring and looking for funding for that particular project.
I want to add to that because the foundation has just completed a major strategic plan, and part of that strategic plan is to really develop a revival plan, is what we're calling it, for the lower reaches from miles 0 to 6 and tied into the Wood Lake. There are a couple of opportunities. Sacramento Running Association is looking at potentially developing some cross-country courses, because there really aren't a lot of cross-country courses throughout the Sacramento area, and that would definitely bring, to be able to have meets, etc. there. Of course, who wouldn't want to see an amphitheater down in Discovery Park, which I know some people here are going to be upset about, but we as a community have to utilize the parkway and appreciate it just like other communities do in San Antonio, in New York. They love their open space and they embrace it. And I think we, as a community, have to kind of look at that and say, how do we ensure that, yes, it's still natural, but we have all these developed rec areas, and how do we maximize that benefit so the whole community can use it?
Right. Next question.
Hi, my name's Susan Skinner, and I'm a photographer. I spend a lot of time on the Parkway. And a lot of people tonight have quite rightly said, this is what we must do for human enjoyment and proper use of the Parkway and for better recreational possibilities for the community. But there are 100,000 users of the Parkway who can't be here tonight because they're animals. And they have no voice. They have no voice to come to this meeting and say, stop destroying our habitat. Stop burning our habitat. Please prevent these. You say 10%, 11% of the parkway has burnt this year. Think of that in terms of accessible food for the animals on that parkway. Think of it in terms of the pollution that is caused to the areas in which they eat, in which they feed their little babies, where the mother does, mother birds, mother bobcats, mother coyotes must still provide for their families in this beautiful parkway that we were given stewardship of. And thank the Lord for people like William Pond. But part of William Pond's mission was to protect the animals on that parkway who don't have this voice that we have. They are just as important as we are. And if you see a mother struggling to feed its babies because it has no food, whether it's human or animal, we must take some responsibility for that, because we were all given this beautiful planet to share, and we are such crappy stewards of it. So I just say, think of ourselves by all means, but please think of our beautiful natural habitat in terms of the life force that's been here since eternity, and its rights too.
The microphone, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Autumn Everhart, and I live in Rancho Cordova. And when I talk to people about why I love living in Sacramento County, it's the bike trail. And I have a question regarding fire safety. I was wondering if, not to enable the homeless, but can we provide services so they don't have to use their fuel and their campfires and everything in the morning? They're probably looking for hot water. Can we set up some stations where they can come fill a thermos for their instant coffee and their oatmeal? What are they eating at night? Are they eating soup? Can we provide them with a bag of groceries so they can make sandwiches and cut up some fresh fruit instead? How do we prevent them from using the fuel? Or if maybe there's an exchange program or something where you give us your canister of fuel and we give you vouchers so you can go to a restaurant or something and get some food instead to discourage them from using it. Thank you.
Where's the microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'm Roland Brady again. And I just wanted to comment that in my reading of the Department of Fish and Wildlife Water Quality Law, Section 6, it says that the property owner will not discharge into the waters of the state or allow to be discharged into the waters of the state debris that can reduce the water quality. And my take on what's happening in the Parkway is there's a wholesale discharge of debris into the waters of the state, making the county in clear violation of the state water quality laws. And I wonder what you think about that.
I go back to what I said earlier about I'm surprised, quite frankly, that we haven't been sued. I mean, if such a strong case can be made that that's the case, then let's hear it in a court of law. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm trying to be serious here. That perhaps the time has come where the most forceful advocacy that can be applied to the board and to the county is by legal means.
Gentleman in the back.
My name is Kent. I am the president of American River Raft Rentals, and this is my second year as co-owner, and so I am very happy to be here and be involved, and I know everybody up there has done an amazing job of keeping my business going, taking care of homeless camps nearby that have caused fires that have affected my buildings, and I see how the sheep have been working, and so I just want to talk about a solution, and I've worked with the American River Parkway Foundation in a lot of cleanups, and I want to let everybody know that I extend my rafts for those cleanups, and I have at least 20 rafts I will have always available for volunteers anywhere on the river, even during our off season. I have box trucks, anybody can go over for those services that I will provide at no cost for volunteers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple more questions before we wrap it up.
My name is Sean. In 2004, we passed Prop 63. Is any of that money from the mental health tax being used to address the mental health issues on the homeless?
Yes, a lot of it is, actually. In fact, this predates my colleague up here, but the county had a kind of a wholesale review and vision about how we use Mental Health Services Act funding a couple years ago, in fact, working closely with the city of Sacramento in terms of how we can work more collaboratively on the mental health front. Of course, the mayor is the author of Prop 63, so we had kind of the horse's mouth, so to speak, that really had a bearing on how we use those dollars more efficiently, swifter, and more effectively in terms of how we deal with behavioral health and mental health.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Maxine Barish-Reeden. I live in Carmichael, and I use the Parkway regularly, and I pick up trash along the Parkway every time I go out. Last month, I participated in the Mile 3 cleanup, and it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It felt demoralizing and hopeless, and my husband's on the board, and I said, is this really doing any good? Because I imagine in a week or two, it's all gonna be back here again. So I came home, and I started to look up what cities have done well with homelessness. Who has done a good job? And why aren't we emulating them? And I found 4 cities: Vienna, Austria, Helsinki, Finland, Salt Lake City, Utah, and there was one other city, I think it was in Ohio, And what they seemed to emphasize was housing first. So two things, getting houses built, not just tent cities and camps, but getting people into homes and giving them services. And then the other thing that we were influenced by was the mini documentary Seattle is Dying, and looking at Rhode Island and what are they doing to get drug users off the streets, because that's also a source of crime. So I'm just wondering, have any of you done any site visits to cities that are doing really well with homelessness? Because we've lived here for 36 years. We've heard about this problem for 36 years. We spent all this money on cleanup and services, but it doesn't seem to be addressing the root problem.
I can't respond to the European cities that you cited, but I can tell you, I think the community you're probably thinking of is Columbus, Ohio. I think it was Columbus. And I did in fact, I took a trip to Columbus after I was elected, but before I was seated. So to prepare myself to kind of look at other communities and what they're doing. One of their, as you cited, one of their housing first objectives proved to be pretty successful there. They have a very unique working relationship with United Way. And I don't know if you found that in your research, but we had a chance, and by we, I mean myself and some other locally elected people from the region that were on this fact-finding trip. And the fact that they did have that working relationship with such a well-fortified nonprofit really seemed to be what they stressed in terms of that history. We don't necessarily have that here. We're blessed and in some ways cursed that we have so many nonprofits in the Sacramento region and sometimes they unfortunately cannibalize each other in terms of trying to help the same populations. But I take very seriously into heart your focus on looking at success stories and how do you emulate some of that, or learn from, if nothing else, learn from perhaps their trial and error. And I agree. I saw Seattle burning too, and I just was very disheartened by that. And I think you've heard the city's mayor, you've heard it from us, from Supervisor Des and myself. We are very concerned that we don't get past a tipping point like Los Angeles, quite frankly, has experienced, where it's really completely out of control in terms of service delivery and governance.
And I would say thank you, Supervisor Stern, who's been at this a lot longer than I have, but it is good governance to look at where things are working. I mean, you mentioned a few things. You mentioned the housing first, but then you also mentioned Rhode Island. I think the program that's working in Rhode Island is because they're actually intervening through enforcement and forcing people into programs. Instead of going to jail, it's a diversionary program where they can get clean and sober and on their way to treatment, and then they'd be much more likely to succeed in housing. And I think there's a challenge. Supervisor Cerna is rightfully focused on the methamphetamine crisis, and I mean, I think there's different schools of thought. I mean, how can some of these folks ever survive in a housing environment? These folks who are dealing with methamphetamine addiction. So we have to. Housing is a huge part of it, and criminal justice reforms we've seen in the state of California are a challenge. And I'm not saying I don't agree with a lot of these reforms, but it has made it more challenging in the state to get folks into treatment at times. And when it comes to housing, it's a very difficult climate in the state of California at times to build more affordable housing because of the restrictions that sometimes our state legislature puts on building that housing. But I think you're absolutely right. There are great models. I think for me, what I'm focused on right now is through our efforts that we're working on specifically to provide relief to the Parkway, the 2x2 efforts between the city and the county. If we can find a model, find a structure that works, and it's going to take pushing back on some of the NIMBY concerns, because I'll tell you, I was thinking, as people were asking, how can we help? I think to myself, well, you can help me because I'm probably going to make some unpopular decisions with my constituents. Decisions that, like Supervisor Cerna alluded to a few moments ago, we wouldn't have considered some of these things a few years ago. But we are in such a dire crisis, not only on the Parkway, but for humanitarian reasons, for reasons affecting our businesses and now affecting our residential neighborhoods more and more. We have to be open to trying things that we haven't tried before. And people need to be willing to accept that and let us try these, let us emulate these programs that work. But if we can show that something works, and I can show that
that results in getting folks into the help that they need, and maybe that's a treatment program, maybe that's some supportive housing with wraparound services. If we can show that works, and it also allows us to move people off the parkway or off of areas where the encampments are causing problems, and provide some relief in those areas, if we can do that somewhere and then scale that up and emulate that more in our community. That's what I'm focused on.
I couldn't agree more with my colleague. And I'll just add this to the Rhode Island example that you cited. That was, if I'm not mistaken, it's a program that is centered on providing inmates that have opioid addiction mostly, and providing them with what's called Vivitrol. And that's actually something that we began doing in our own jail I want to say about 5 years ago. I've also been advocating for a wider availability of what's called buprenorphine, which is another type of medication that can be used to treat acute opioid addiction. And I think we have to, we can't just put on blinders as local elected decision makers and compartmentalize the parkway separate from homelessness, separate from criminality, separate from all these other connected issues. And, there is absolutely, at least again, speaking for myself, and I think Supervisor Desmond alludes to it very, very well, there's no pride of ownership here. We're not going to go put some successful program on a trophy shelf. We want to, be able to, at some point, with our kids and grandchildren, go and enjoy a clean and safe parkway, because decisions were made, sometimes tough decisions, and they were made with, broad community input. And sometimes that's going to have some friction associated with it, and that's fine. That's the healthy part of a beautiful process that we have in Sacramento County and in this country in terms of governance, and the fact that, if we're not doing our jobs, how to change that as voters.
Hi, Crystal Tobias here again. I just have two brief comments. One is the unintended consequences of, I think it's Prop 47 that decriminalized 3 grams of meth or 3 grams of some controlled substance. And that makes it a whole lot easier for methamphetamines to proliferate in the camps and just elsewhere in our community. It's not just homeless people using methamphetamines, but it's certainly concentrated down there. So that, and the other piece of Prop 47 was decriminalizing theft under $1,000. So somebody can go in and steal $1,000 worth of stuff every day and not get arrested. And while that might not hurt Rite Aid or Target, that's certainly going to hurt mom and pop stores that are going to leave our communities. That's one thing. The second thing is the city of Folsom, where I live, just earlier this week signed an ordinance to not allow illegal camping in their wild areas around the town, which abuts the state park. And this is because of the fire and the health and safety of the environment. So they finally took a hard stand, and I've been nagging them for a while, and they realized I'm not going away for other issues. And I think other people in the community also have had enough, and so they did take that big step, and I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Thanks. I'm Tristan Billerback. I'm a native Sacramentan, and I'm a mechanical engineer that became a teacher. And I use the parkway all the time for hiking, for biking. I've kayaked all the river and Sutter's Landing. The levees, having them trenched to be level for the campsites, just is crazy that no one's stopping them from, acting like a mole and endangering downtown Sacramento. But I like the ideas that we're coming up with. I don't want to pave in the parking lots or anything like that, but I think that if we have campsites that maybe people provide little jobs that no one else in their right mind will want to do. But you saw these people who really wanted to do something productive, and they could do these little jobs, and it gave them so much joy. So you've got these meth brains now that are very similar to the kids that I used to teach that were special ed, and they could benefit from that too. If you read Viktor Frankl's In Search of Meaning, people need a meaning. So if we take them away from our pristine, we wish it was pristine, but our beautiful American Parkway, and keep it for our children and our children's children beautiful, so that we can all enjoy it, but we also help the homeless and give them meaning so that they don't go back on meth once they get clean. So that's all I want.
Thank you. And that goes back to what Jay said too about incentivizing people too. So thank you. Thank you for all of your questions. I just want to close out tonight with maybe some short comments from each of our panel members. Maybe if there was something that you heard tonight, a solution that really stuck with you, maybe what you plan to do, just something different tonight that's moving you forward. We'll start with you.
I want to close with just saying thank you to the American River Parkway Foundation for convening this panel, convening all of you together with this video. It's a conversation that's been long overdue, and I'm extremely heartened by the turnout and all the ideas and everything that you have brought forth. And I can't thank you enough for all your volunteer help and the fact that you took time out of your evening to share with us your ideas. So I just want to close with thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'd like to thank the foundation for bringing us together as well. I would say there are a couple of themes I heard. One is around camping. The other is around fuel management. And I would say that the foundation has created a forum for you to support them to address those issues, and the Fire Safe Council is a tool to do that. So I just encourage you to continue to volunteer and address the issues on the Parkway, but really work with your partners to bring solutions to the county so they can move some of these issues forward. Thank you.
So I too want to thank the foundation and everyone for taking time out of their evening to join us and ask some really good questions and provide us with some excellent commentary and suggestions about how to do things differently. I think that's the one thing we can all agree upon, is that status quo is unacceptable. I will tell you the one thing that I think bodes most well, quite frankly, for us is actually sitting up here. And I will remind folks that I supported Rich Desmond's opponent when he decided to run for the Board of Supervisors. I will tell you unequivocally, so Rich has been on the board for a little over 6 months now. The kind of collaboration and partnership that we are enjoying on this particular subject, I haven't seen from any other kind of partnership between 2 or more members of the board, at least in my tenure on the Board of Supervisors over the last almost 11 years. So a lot of credit goes to Rich for, I think, immediately approaching me and say, hey, can we team up on this? And of course I was, the clouds parted and the angels sang, and I think, quite frankly, all kidding aside, I think politically, the fact that we have 2 members of the board that are now prioritizing the Parkway the way we are, willing to collaborate, opening the door to collaboration with other local jurisdictions, whether that's the city of Sacramento, city of Rancho Cordova, others that have a vested interest in the Parkway, I think is going to serve the entirety of the county and the region much better when it comes to this challenge around the Parkway.
Well, from the foundation's perspective, we would love that. I appreciate everyone being here. I'm thankful for the individual sitting next to me that they volunteered to be up here tonight. Some of them were worried they needed Kevlar and armor, but I think it was okay. But from our standpoint, one, it's the commitment to the Parkway. And that is what we are about as an organization, to make it the best that it can be. So I appreciate that. The ideas are great. Collaboration is great. I think for me, the biggest issue is around fire right now, and being able to bring the Fire Safe Council and to engage everyone around in this room and the greater community around that. So I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you. And one other thing before I forget, I just want to thank the staff of the Parkway Foundation for helping us put this together in the last 2.5 weeks. So thank you to each of you.
Of course, thanking the foundation for the invitation to participate tonight. Thank all of you for coming and spending your time. And it sounds like a lot of you spend a lot of time in the Parkway, and it's time well spent. We do kick off the council tomorrow is the first meeting. And just from my background and knowledge of seeing other fire safe councils up and down the state, it means, again, coming together with solutions. And some of the solutions that I've seen is, examining the vegetation. We heard a lot about the sheep and goats tonight. It looks like that is working, but for fire response, it's about access. It's about knowing who's out there. I know in Santa Barbara, they even set up cameras in some sites so that they know if a fire is starting, they can check immediately. They know exactly where it is. And so efficiency is what our business is all about, to keep these fires small and create the damage, prevent the damage from happening. So I encourage all of you to stay passionate and continue to hold us accountable to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the youngest of 9 kids. I usually don't get the last word, but thank you. I first want to thank you, Supervisor Serna. That really means a lot to me, and I tell you, it has been really an honor to work with you on this issue, and I just really applaud you for your leadership and your courage taking this issue on, and I'm really happy to join you in your advocacy. And I know we'll be working on this for a long time. And thank you to the foundation for including me. I didn't have nearly as much to offer as most of the other panelists, but I look at my seat here, and I'm just temporarily occupying this seat here in District 3, but I will be, I've been a lifelong user of the Parkway, supporter of the Parkway, and I'll be using that Parkway until the day I die, and will be an advocate for it until the day I die. So this will, I hope, this will be one of my number one priorities during my tenure, and I'm just honored to be a part of the discussion today. And I hope this is not the end of the discussion. I hope we'll be doing more of these, and we will be seeing you at our board meetings to advocate. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your solutions, your suggestions. I just want to let you know that everything was recorded tonight. We're going to get our video on the website, as someone mentioned earlier. Share that video, get the word out. I think that's one of the best things we can do. Thank you for everyone who is joining us on Facebook right now and for your comments. Really appreciate that. And if you would like to volunteer, that was the other thing I really heard tonight. Volunteer and light up the meetings. Those are the two things, right? Volunteer. The next Great American River Cleanup again is September 18th. Talk to Diana if you are interested in that, or go to the website, which is arpf.org. Please volunteer if you can. And thank you for, I know some of you who've been picking up the Parkway for 20 plus years, you really, it is meaningful, and you are doing a lot of work, and you are seen. We appreciate you. So have a wonderful night, drive home safe, and take care of it.